There's been a lot of talk about the return of NBC. Of course, it's the first race for NBC back on the Cup and Xfinity side of things. They'll have the second half of the season all the way to the end. And some mixed reaction, I think. A lot of fans relieved that Fox Sports is no longer broadcasting the races, and were very happy with what they saw this weekend from NBC. Other people, I think, seeing flaws in the NBC broadcast as well as the Fox broadcast. I know I'm certainly speaking for our friend of the show, Matthew Owens, when I say that as well. But Brandon, I want to hand it over to you first, and then Casey, I've got a follow-up for you on the IMSA side of things as well, because I know there was a bit of a debacle there towards the end of the 6 hours of the Glen. But Brandon, what were your thoughts on NASCAR and NBC's return this weekend?
To be honest, Ben, it really kind of felt like back to normal to me. I'm okay. I probably have the opinion that's not really in the majority. I believe, in my opinion, that I enjoy NBC's coverage more than Fox for NASCAR, and I know a lot may disagree with that, but I think they take it in a much more motorsport purist analytical approach, and the opposite of that would be entertainment approach. How do we make this fun? How much can we yell kind of atmosphere? Now, does NBC still have some of that? Do they still show the mechanical bull? Yeah, sure they do. But, they know when. I think they've got a better grasp of when that is appropriate and how much of it to have and when it's best to leave that out. Example, 50 laps to go in the race. We're not taking fun shots anymore. We're talking about the race. But so for NBC's return, I really did just see the Xfinity Series broadcast, and I really didn't have any problems with it. Now, if I went back and dissected it, I probably would have found some things wrong. But for the Cup side, really being there this weekend, as you can see the towel here, my wife and I got to go, had a great time. We got the racing electronics rental, so we heard the TV broadcast over the megahertz, and never really heard the TV broadcast quite like that before, but hearing it in real time was a lot of fun, and kind of hearing it in like worse than AM's radio quality, but it was still fun because you knew it was basically right on time. I think they were making great inputs, great insight, and of course there was a repetition of talking about Tootsie's and Daniel Suarez, things like that. Things you feel like were kind of done behind the counter. Hey, can you mention us a few times, kind of thing. But and also being a local from this area, I do kind of smirk whenever they show all these things about Broadway and Nashville, and the track is nowhere near downtown. And so, but that that's a staple for anywhere you go. Whenever you're going to that city's track, you got to show the downtown area, even if it's not in Chicago, it's in Joliet, from Chicagoland days. But yeah, I don't have a big problem with NBC's return. I know a lot of people do, and I know what they're talking about. And there has been times when I have thought, yeah, nothing but commercials. Am I right? But I didn't see the commercials this time that much, so I guess I'm not good to talk about it yet. You may have to ask me after Chicago.
Yeah, well, I think Chicago is going to be a big test. I think that's, Brock Beer was saying this on his stream last night. This is going to be like their version of the Clash. This is a big, brand new event that they're going all out for. I mean, I think they, on multiple occasions, went live to Parker Kligerman, who went over to do some live reports from the city of Chicago to get ready for the coverage next weekend. So that's going to be interesting. I think we'll have a better grasp of, where NBC is after that race. I'll say this much, Brandon. I think it's interesting that you think you're in the minority, because I actually think you're not. I think you're in a pretty sizable majority, at least from what I've seen on Twitter and in YouTube comments and things. I think a lot of it is just Fox fatigue, because, don't get me wrong, Fox, I mean, we've talked on this show, think back to the Knoxville truck race last year in particular. I think that was one of the worst we've ever seen. But there's a lot of Fox fatigue by the time we get done Sonoma, and everybody's looking forward to a new network coming back and kind of a change of pace here. But I don't really know where this came from. I don't know if it's, Dale Jr. is still popular, and I get why people like the energy that Jr. brings. I think sometimes he's on the rev limiter and it's a little bit too much here. And some of the lines that he says, there was one line he had when they were 3 wide last night. He said, "Look at this racing at this racetrack." And it just, it's little things like that I
But listen, I know Junior-isms. I think I know what he means. Like,
yeah,
the way he's saying it may not sound coherent, but I know what he's saying.
sure.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Different people are going to like different things. That's totally fair. I just get confused. I mean, I feel like you would think Sam Flood walks on water. Like they think that NBC is just like the gold standard. It's absolutely perfect. They're up here, Fox is down here. I think we're allowed to acknowledge that there are strengths and weaknesses from both networks. And so seeing all these, I feel like NBC has kind of been getting a pass for certain things. Like, I don't know what they were doing. I'll say this much. I think the best thing NBC did all weekend was at the very start of the Xfinity race. I liked their take on the grid walk. It wasn't like a traditional grid walk. It was Junior and Burton on pit road for a minute as the engines were idling, giving, I thought, very solid analysis and, talking cohesively, not Michael Waltrip spilling a taco on Denny Hamlin's car versus the Fox grid walk thing. I think that was great, but they seemed to kind of double down with that on Sunday. And I don't know if it was just because of the start being moved up and the fact that, there really was no pre-race coverage. I don't see why they couldn't have bumped off an old Law and Order rerun on USA or thrown something together on Peacock. But,
dun, dun.
Whatever the case may be, there was no coverage pre-race, which, some fans didn't seem to mind. I feel like you have to at least do a little bit to set the stage going forward. But, the whole first part of the race, people, like you were mentioning, Brandon, I think they couldn't hear Junior and Burton at all. And I think that's certainly, something that, maybe NBC should take a look at that and say, maybe we don't need to try that again. Or if we are going to try it, we need to at least ensure that we'll be able to hear what they're saying. But I think that the biggest issue with NBC all day was something that happened in the IMSA race. And of course, Casey, I'll bring you back in for this. A lot of people were upset, and this is where the whole nothing but commercials thing comes in. NBC, not only for the 6 hours at the Glen, the IMSA race, you have a 6-hour endurance race. They not only took a commercial with under 10 minutes to go, the Peacock feed doesn't do side by side. So the bare minimum, people watching on traditional television on USA, they got the side by side feed. The people on Peacock were seeing a full screen commercial. Most of the time, most of the ads for Peacock are just for other Peacock programming. And they missed the pass for the win, which, ended up being irrelevant anyway, I think, because we have the whole disqualification issue. Casey, you can go into that a little bit as well if you'd like. I know we're going to talk more about that on Grid Tonight on Wednesday, but, it just was very chaotic there at the end with missing what we thought at the moment was the race-winning pass. I know a lot of people were very upset on social media. What was your take on what happened with NBC at the end of the IMSA race?
Oh, I mean, I was watching the main broadcast on USA as well as Peacock. I was doing a bunch of different things, and I did see that. I'm like, okay, all right. It wasn't good. That's all I gotta say. I mean, it's 10 minutes left. I know. I'll say this. If they did this and there was an intriguing battle going on, you would see a major riot. And you still did. But I don't know. It's just, and I'll say this. This is nothing against the talent at NBC. I mean, I know a lot of them. The booth did a really good job with the IMSA broadcast. The pit reporters did a good job. Of course, at that time, you got 6 hours of coverage, and they told a bunch of stories. And, whenever Matt Yoakum's on pit road, you're going to get some good stuff.
Yes.
Remember when we talked about this in January, guys, about this, the IMSA podcast?
Yeah.
I would pay more money for a non-commercial broadcast. I get it. I totally get it from, because,
don't say it too loud. It might happen.
I totally get it why commercials are there. I mean, the networks need to make money and all that. I'm not sure how much, NBC's paying, and I don't think we'll ever know. But yeah, I'd pay more for maybe a little bit, because that's what we had last year. Those if I was not mistaken, those Peacock streams were commercial free. I'm not sure what changed this year. So
I think it's a Peacock thing more than NBC Sports.
Yeah.
If I had to guess. it'd probably be someone at Peacock saying, no, you can't do that at all.
It frustrates me as a viewer because, you're right. We can, bring up what we were talking about after Daytona and the Rolex and everything. I just get so frustrated that they're showing us a different commercial feed than what they have on the linear television. And again, like when you're shoving, like if it's just, if it's advertisements that I know third-party companies have come in and said, we want to advertise during your race on your network, and we want to be specifically on Peacock, then I get all that. But it seems to me like 9 times out of 10, the ads that they're showing are, oh, check out this new show. It is coming to Peacock on July 15th, or check out our other programming on our own streaming channel here, where you can watch supersized episodes of The Office. Like it's, I don't know,
which are great. Super fan, by the way, super fan,
whatever. Yeah, whatever. It's it just seems like such shameless plugs to me that it's kind of a turnoff, and it makes me like, again, like the series that we cover here at Grid. There's going to be a Peacock exclusive IndyCar race here coming up, just like there was last year. Like it's almost unjustifiable to me not to give them the $5 a month to have a subscription, because there's so much motorsports content on there that's useful to us when we're talking about these races and these series and everything. And then of course you have the IndyCar Peacock exclusive race, but it's very frustrating.
Is it Toronto?
I think it is. Yes. And it was
Toronto
last year at least. And I know that the irony and the irony in that is Peacock's not available in Canada. There was somebody, I remember somebody talking about the media center last year and saying, like, I'm in the media center trying to pull up the feed, and it's telling me the service that is the exclusive broadcaster of the race is not available in this location. So
brought to you by NordVPN.
Yeah, there you go. That's what you're going to have to do, VPN.
NordVPN.
I will say one thing I do find frustrating about that is they can't put their NASCAR coverage for some reason also available on Peacock.
Yeah, that's another thing I don't understand.
That troubles me because sometimes those some NASCAR programs are the hardest thing to find, because you can look through NBC's normal app, and then you can also look through USA, and sometimes it won't show up. I don't know if anyone else is having those problems.
I think the interface it's one of the weakest out of all the different streaming services like Netflix, Disney Plus, Paramount, Max. I guess we can't call it HBO Max anymore. They dropped the Max. HBO. We'll wrap it up here with this. I think that there's been a lot of Fox fatigue, and I think viewers are excited for a fresh start here, and I get all that, but I'd caution against both looking at NBC and thinking that there's absolutely nothing wrong with their broadcasts, and they're the gold standard, and they're at the top, Fox at the bottom. But I'd also caution people, like, looking at what I'm saying and looking at what Matthew Owens is saying and thinking, like, I don't want to speak too much for Matthew here, but I don't think we're trying to give off the impression that there is not one single good thing NBC is doing in regards to NASCAR right now. I think, they have a lot of very solid talent. It's just a matter of putting, their talent in the right places. Like, Matthew and I were talking, maybe Dale Jarrett and Kyle Petty would be better in the booth, and Dale Jr. and Jeff Burton would be better on the Peacock pit box. I know, I understand, like Mike Joyce said it perfectly on the download. You couldn't dynamite Jr. out of the booth because of who he is and, the popularity there. I understand why they want him in the booth, but, I think that's a part of it too. And Brock's mentioned this as well. You have to, I don't even know that anybody has to be fired. It's just a matter of looking at that, dissecting what's going on in your broadcasts and reviewing them and taking a look back at what we can improve on and making sure that you're using your talent in the right places. Because again, I think that the whole too many cooks in the kitchen thing has come up as well. Do we really need 4 people, in the booth and 2 of them on each side here, where it's harder for Rick Allen to maybe, put his arm out and try to, make his color commentators lay out a little bit. I don't know. I think I don't foresee too many major changes happening to NBC, because this is the 9th year that they've, been back on the Cup Series coverage here. And, I think they kind of are who they are now, but, maybe it'll get a little bit better as they shake the rust off a little bit. Maybe it won't, but we'll see. It's going to leave us with no shortage of things to talk about here, because I know, again, like so many other things in this sport, fans have a very divided opinion on it, and that's great for us because it gives us something to talk about, and we'll go from there.